I'm a journalist, and I have spent the last few days reaching out to advocates, experts, and the government about Mark Carney's new border bill, Bill C-2. I even got my hands on the deck that they provided to media for a technical briefing on the law. And what I learned in all of this research was not reassuring. I had a phone call with Syed Hussan, a spokesperson for the Migrant Rights Network, which is an alliance, a group of organizations that aim to combat racism and fight for migrant justice. And his warnings about this bill were genuinely chilling. And what's more is his network of organizations is not the only one saying this. But let's start with him. When I was on the phone with Syed, he told me that Bill C-2 is a, quote, massive expansion of authoritarian powers. He called it Trump-style tactics and antics, and he said it was egregious that this is the first bill the government has put out. Syed warned that this bill, Bill C-2, could create in Canada a Trump-style deportation machine through the new powers it grants. And if you're listening to this and you're like, oh, whatever, I trust that Mark Carney won't use the powers like that, I want you to remember this. With each thing I'm going to tell you, I want you to ask yourself, would I be comfortable with a conservative government having this power? Because even if you trust the Carney Liberal government not to abuse these powers, and that's a big if, we will probably someday have a conservative government again. And if this bill, as written, passes into law, that conservative government will have all of these powers. So let me tell you a little more about it. Bill C-2 will amend two relevant pieces of immigration-related legislation too, and I am quoting from the information deck the government provided. Secure and extend legislative authorities to cancel, suspend, or vary immigration documents and cancel or suspend processing of new applications en masse for reasons determined to be in the public interest, end quote. What this means is the government is giving itself the ability to cancel previously issued immigration documents, any of them from the wording here, in large groups, when it's in the public interest, whatever they decide that means. This is concerningly vague. And the Migrant Rights Network isn't the only one worried about this. Another advocacy group, the International Civil Liberties Monitoring Group, echoed this concern, stating that this proposed change could, quote, allow for the mass cancellation or suspension of the processing of individuals from certain countries or under certain kinds of visas or immigration documents, etc., similar to what we have seen in the US. The ICLMG also warned that this legislation turns our Coast Guard, which has no independent oversight body, into a security force, allowing them to engage in, quote, security patrols and the collection, analysis, and disclosure of information or intelligence. That's right here in the bill. On top of all of that, Bill C-2 would give powers to Canada Post to open and search letter mail, which currently it isn't allowed to do. Oh, and this is the part with the whole canceling of immigration documents in the public interest. This bill also makes it harder for people to claim asylum in Canada, and terrifyingly, it lowers the bar for sharing personal information of people immigrating to Canada, both within and outside of Canada, with some minimal safeguards in place. Like, should we really be lowering the bar for sharing information related to immigration with the United States? Take a look at what's happening in LA right now. I'll wait. I also reached out to the Canadian Civil Liberties Association about this bill because Bill C-2 also has some spooky stuff in it about, like, allowing law enforcement agencies to get your IP address without a warrant and more. That particular tidbit of the bill was highlighted in this op-ed by Althea Raj. And here is what the Canadian Civil Liberties Association told me in a statement attributable to their Director of Criminal Justice, Shakir Rahim. Quote, Bill C-2 is over 100 pages long and would amend dozens of acts. It will take time to review it thoroughly. It appears, however, to propose significant changes to laws that protect core rights and liberties, including protections for refugees, limits on police investigative powers, and privacy protections for mail and personal data. There has been no broad consultation by the government on the content of the bill. Complex legislation affecting our charter rights cannot be rushed through Parliament. It demands rigorous review. We urge the government to ensure there is adequate time and opportunity for immigration, civil liberties, privacy organizations, and others to provide meaningful input. And see, that actually touches on another one of my concerns. Because in about roughly the last week, Mark Carney's government introduced this sweeping border and surveillance bill, legislation related to the expedited approval of projects in the national interest that also lifts federal barriers to internal trade, and Carney promised to massively up defense spending. And as you can see, civil society is already struggling to put together a quick response. And at a time when the media is also underfunded and overworked, I'm nervous about our ability to read everything and fully hold this government to account, particularly when Carney is promising to push these through Parliament like fast. Like, even as I worked on this one story, I was juggling several others that are just as important. Now, I reached out to several government departments for this report: Justice, Immigration, Public Safety, and my request was passed on to the Public Safety Minister's office. Because a really fun fact is, while Mark Carney is moving very fast on legislation, the government is taking forever to actually hire comms people within Minister's office, so it's hard to know actually who to reach out to. Anyway, while they all confirmed to me that they will get me a response to my various questions from the various relevant departments, none of the government offices responded by my deadline, which was 1 p.m. today. If I get a helpful response, I will be sure to update you guys. Because they have said they will send answers, I just couldn't hold this story any longer. Especially because I have some other stories that we will need to talk about very soon. Until then, what do you think of all this?